Hello, welcome to the channel Flesh to the Father. Today's video I'm going to be explaining how to be a real man in our modern world and also how to deal with heartbreak as a young man. Let's go. Okay, I've been planning on doing this video for a while about masculinity, and also I've had a young man reach out to me asking me how he should deal with heartbreak, only a young man, 18, 19 years old. So I'm going to reply to that as well, and everything will make sense by the end of this video as to how to resolve the problem and be a real man in our modern world. Let's go. Okay, so I'm going to start from the very beginning because this is a complex subject, and I'm going to go in detail and take you on a storyline or a timeline from beginning to the end and how we get to the modern day and how going forward we can make it better. So obviously in the beginning, we have a creator in the spirit who created this world, and we have male and female. That's just standard by the way we view reality. And obviously man represents strength, women represent nurturing. You know, man is more logically thinking, women is more intuition. And they're the standard male, female physical traits. But you also have spiritual traits. You have the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And as this video is for men, I'm going to stick to the masculine traits. So as you can see from the picture on the screen, you have divine masculine and wounded masculine. And it may sound a little bit hippie, but there is truth in it. And in our modern world, a lot of men suffered from wounded masculine because masculinity, true masculinity, spiritual masculinity is under attack. And if you have a look at the divine masculine traits first, divine masculinity, real men are supposed to be encouraging, protect and guide. They have inspired action, clear communication. They're responsible, expanded vision, aligned work. They have a spiritual purpose. They're honest and humble, uplifting strength. They express emotion in a healthy way, not an emotional female way. And they're disciplined and driven. That's all the traits of real men, divine masculine men. Whereas if you look at the wounded masculine, this actually sums up a lot of our world. And a lot of the so-called alpha male, wannabe alpha males they're talking about, they're only understanding things from an earthly point of view. And they think that they're being masculine, but really, oh, I'm an alpha male, man, all this stuff. It's a load of nonsense. They're actually wounded masculine, and they're probably coming it from almost a female point of view of, I don't know, whether they're raised by single mothers or in our modern female world, they don't have a true understanding of masculinity. And this wounded masculinity, let's have a look at these. If you just look at all these fake alpha males, they're very aggressive, easily offended, competitive, aligned with the ego rather than the spirit. They're success driven. So it's, yeah, I've got to get my Lambos rather than having a spiritual purpose. They're very defensive. They're over controlling. When they're in relationships, you know, they take the Christian view of, my wife's got to obey me, but they do it in a fake way, not a real way, where if you're divine masculine, your wife will, or girlfriend will naturally, or your wife will naturally obey you because you're of the light, rather than the fake version is, my wife's obeying me because she's a woman, she's under me. That's just stupidness. They don't understand the profoundness of what it means. And they're selfish. They have withdrawn emotions. They're materialistic, stuck in the mind. They refuse help, and they're spiritually disconnected. So a lot of men in our modern world suffer from the wounded masculine, and they need to work towards the divine masculine. Okay, now I want to touch on our modern world is extremely feminized, and young men, we're raised either by a very feminine society, you know, the school system, everything is engineered towards femininity rather than masculinity, and young men become feminized. For example, they're told to focus on worldly stuff rather than given real spiritual values. And in the home, generally, we have a lot of single motherhood, but even within families of husband and wife, in my opinion, most of the world that I grew up in, the women were seen as the head of the family. And not so much from, a lot of them still have old school values of like the man being the provider and all that stuff, but I'm talking about the spiritual head. Because there's no spirituality at all, it's almost like the woman has got her own cult, the mother. So if you noticed, like everyone's like, oh, I love my mum so much. Even look at old school rappers like Tupac did song Dear Mama. And people all worship their mothers. All the songs is all about mama and worshipping women. Oh, all this stuff. But it's not supposed to be that way. And if you just have a look at the way we call God and the earth, we have Father God in the spirit and we have Mother Earth. And what that really means is men should be towards the spirit and women are towards the world. And that's a good way. There's nothing above or below it. It's just the way that things are. Women are more comfortable in the world, men are more comfortable towards the spirit. That's why women have children and they can nurture the children in the physical body. But the father's role is, once the children are in the world, the mother's role is to look after the needs of the child's physical life, such as providing the milk, the food, and all that stuff. Whereas the man's job is obviously beyond providing the home and all that, is to provide spiritual values and spiritual wisdom for their child so that they grow up strong, masculine, rather than weak and feminine as we have in our today's world, because men do not realize that there is a spirit and they have to be the spiritual head of their family. The woman takes over, or the man is also made in the woman's image because he's not born again. He still has a feminine mindset and he's still stuck within the femininity of that his mother gave him. They're raising weak children, and the women are raising weak children, or weak men specifically. And what we need to do desperately in our world is introduce a spiritual revolution and teach young men and married men and fathers to get their true power back, not from the world, not from getting money and all this stuff, success, but from gaining a spiritual power about principles, about values, about spiritual power. It will come naturally. And then once we gain our power back, or men gain their power back, then society will start to be fixed. Okay, so understanding the masculine, feminine traits and how our modern world has created weak men, this leads on to what the young gentleman asked me about, dealing with heartbreak and dealing with our own weaknesses, or what I perceive as weaknesses. Okay, so what happens is we're either raised to be weak or we have wounded masculinity. And it's almost two ways. You almost have, as Roy Masters has said, you have the wimp or the bully. So the wimp is we're raised feminized. So we either, the simp, that's what the modern day simp. They're, simping after women, sucking up to women, worshipping women, looking to women for love, feeling like they need a relationship and taking emotional love from a woman. That's all the wimpy version. But then you also have the bully version, who of young men who are wounded and they're very aggressive with women. They'll cheat on their girlfriend. They'll be abusive, verbally abusive, emotionally abusive. So you have the wimp and you have the bully. And what will usually happen when men face heartbreak, obviously from the simpier version, they put women on a pedestal and they're looking for love from women. And it's natural. When you're young, you're always going to do that, generally, especially in our modern world, because, as I say, we've been raised to be simps in a way. But it's always going to lead to heartbreak, because women will not be attracted to the weak masculinity within us. They'll be attracted to divine masculinity. And they'll be least attracted to sort of weak masculine. They'll be more attracted to wounded masculine, because at least they'll display some fake masculine traits, the fake alpha males. At least they're more alpha than the simps. But what women are really seeking that they don't know about is a divine masculine man, a man who's spiritually connected and has values and strength and real love. And this is my advice to the young men who are suffering heartbreak or anything, is that rather than worrying about relationships, it's not the time. You need to work on finding your own strength. Especially if you're young, you've got plenty of time for dating and finding a good wife in the future. But now you need to build your strength up. And your strength means moving into your divine masculine nature and working on those traits and finding your true power. And as I said before, men shouldn't look to women for love and emotional stuff. What is supposed to happen is man is supposed to be the source of love. And then women will be drawn to the man and she'll receive the love from the man, rather than feel like the man's trying to extract love from her. And if you want an analogy, women should look to men the same way that as men, we would look to someone like Jesus. Like Jesus, let's just take the Christian view on the way that I see Jesus anyway, as Jesus is strong, powerful, but he's someone I look up to as a source of strength and love. And that's how women should look to men. They should look to men as we look to Jesus. And when men are weak, it'd be like, imagine if Jesus was weak, how turned off we'd be by that. Imagine if at the time of Jesus, we were there and we were following Jesus, but then all of a sudden Jesus come up one day and was being all emotional and was like, I'm a bit scared of being put to the cross. Oh, I might have to bottle it. And going around going, oh, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you want to be my disciples? We'd be like, hold on, Jesus, you're sounding like a wimp. Where's your masculinity? We'd be turned off by his weakness. But we love Jesus because we can sense his power, his honor. He had no fear. He's like, I'll die for my cause. He'd go into the church and take it to all the Pharisees, the fake Pharisees. But he also had true love to help the poor, the needy. He had the perfect masculine character. And that's what we look to in Jesus as our spiritual master, Lord, whatever you want to call him. And that's how men should look to their husbands and men in their life. We're supposed to be a source of light and of love, not simpering after seeking love from them. So my advice to young men, become like Jesus, unlock that Christ within you, and then you'll gain that power and you'll be the source of love for your future wife in the future. And then you'll be a great wife, a great husband, a great father, and a great person in the modern world. And that's why you need to spiritually work on yourself. And I saw a good quote by the Buddha, and you need to find your own strength. And one thing the young gentleman said, he's feeling a bit lonely at the moment. And that's it's just a sign that you need to work on yourself, because the Buddha says, rather than loneliness, you need to move to solace. And what that means is, one thing I've realized is, I don't get lonely. I'm single because I'm on the spiritual path, but also I like being on my own now. Whereas when you're stuck in the ego, being alone is a bit scary. You want to be around people and you want to get into the world and do things with your life. But when you're on a spiritual path and finding your own strength, you like being on your own. There's strength in solace rather than a weakness in loneliness. So if you feel loneliness being on your own, that's just a sign that you need to work on building yourself. And once you find solace rather than loneliness and you're happy in your own solace, then you realize that you're ready to find a future wife. And it won't take long. If you do the right spiritual thing, in months, you'll start finding your power. And then once you go onto the dating scene, as I say, women will naturally realize it within you. Rather than be put off by weakness, they'll be drawn towards your strength. And if you want for us men to understand it, you see how we're attracted to femininity, to beauty, to the tenderness of women. We're not attracted to, these modern day feminists who are butch and boisterous and, yeah, I'm a career woman, all this stuff. We're not turned off by that or turned on by that. We're turned away from that. We're attracted to femininity. So when we're acting weak and pathetic, that's how women see us, how we see all these, butch feminists. We're not turned off to it. We're attracted to the beauty of the femininity, as I said. And now I want to touch on moving from red pill rage to white pill wisdom. It's one thing the young man said, and I notice all the time, is that he's feeling a little bit of anger. The good thing he said, he doesn't feel any hatred or anything to anyone. He's just a bit angry at the situation. And that's completely understandable. And I also had a lot of red pill rage. I wasn't because I suffered any hurt from a personal relationship, but I just woke up to the world and saw how feminized our society was. There's a lot of anger at how I was raised to be weak and how we live in this feminized world. Like in COVID, it was all overly protective and put your mask on, make sure you get the treatments. It's just overly weak and pathetic. I was like, let me live my life. I don't need you dominating and controlling me and treating me like I'm weak and pathetic. Just, let me get on with life. And we see a lot of the red pill movement, and there was the MGTOW movement, men going their own way. And there's a lot of hatred towards women. And you see loads of it all over the internet. As you do starting to see with women hating men. And there's sort of a war between men and women. Men are saying, oh, women, they're all modern day sluts and they'll cheat on the men. And they've got high body counts and there's no good women, all this stuff. And then you have the women starting to fight back and attack men. And we have basically a gender war going on. And it makes complete sense. As I said, red pill rage. Another example is a man who gets divorced and then the woman cheats on him because she looks for a man who's richer. And then she takes his kids away from him. And then the courts get involved. And because our feminized society is geared towards women, he has to give all his money to the woman. And then he gets completely screwed over. Naturally, he's going to be angry and he's going to have red pill rage. But what he needs to do, and young men and all men need to do, is move from the anger of red pill rage to white pill wisdom. And what white pill wisdom is, it's just gaining an understanding of everything stems from our spirit. And what we'll realize is, rather than having the anger of being exploited for our weakness, we'll understand that, as I say, things stem from us. And you understand, like, okay, the reason this happened because I was weak and I need to learn to become strong. And that's the wisdom. So for an example, if you get into a relationship and you're weak, and let's say the girl you're with cheats on you because, you know, she's a shallow woman, and maybe you went after her because you were either shallow and she was super attractive, or let's just say you're weak and you're desperate for a relationship. So you went out with her and it was from a place of weakness, and then she cheats on you because she was a shallow woman. And then you got that anger. She cheated on me. She doesn't love me. I can't believe it. It's rubbish. Women are evil, blah, 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 blah. You do all that stuff. But when you have white pill wisdom instead, you'll see that, okay, I get it. I was weak. And because I was weak, I was seeking love, or I was seeking sex or physical attraction, which led to me attracting a poor quality of woman who cheated on me. So it's not her fault necessarily. It stemmed from me being weak. If I'm strong, I'm not going to falling just for my lusts and a physical attractiveness of a woman. And I'm not going to go to it from a point of weakness of, oh, I'm lonely or whatever. I need a woman to fill the hole in my heart. And then that means that you're coming from weakness. She senses that and she's eventually going to cheat or go for someone else. You'll see that's white pill wisdom, seeing it's your own weakness. And then from there, you realize I need to build my own strength up. And then when you work on that strength, you can solve your problems. Okay, so you need to move from red pill rage to white pill wisdom. And that is what I will touch on next, is how to do that. Okay, and this is what you need to do, young men and men. You need to become strong first and go from red pill rage to white pill wisdom. It's basically, you need a spiritual awakening. You need to awaken your spirit within you. And that is your true source of power. And you'll become the light, and you won't need anything, because the love you're seeking is not from a woman. It's from within yourself and from our spiritual father. Because once you awaken your spirit, you'll understand you have a spiritual father, and you'll understand the love, the true love of the spiritual father. And then that will pour into you, and you'll become, as I said, rather than seeking love, you'll become a source of love for your wife, for your children, and for the world. And as I say, you'll understand that real love is spiritual love. It's not emotional stuff. And you won't fall into this stuff of believing in soulmates and stuff. That's more of a worldly point of view. So for an example, you could meet a girl and think, oh, this is my soulmate. I've seen men do it before. I'm meant to be with twin flames and all that stuff. But when you look at it from a worldly point of view, when you're looking at it that way and believing that, it's just a bit of a delusion. And, you know, I've seen young men who, when I grew up with friends and stuff, they'd meet one girl and they're like, oh, it's my soulmate. And then they break up, they'd be heartbroken. And a month later, have a new girl and be like, oh, it's my soulmate. And then once they've dated 3 or 4 or 5 women, they realize it's just a load of nonsense. And that it's just, whenever you're in love, you're going to think, or you're in worldly love, you're going to think that it's a soulmate. But it's not true love. That's just emotional stuff. As I say, once you move away from the worldly love to finding your spiritual power and the Father, you'll understand true love. And true love has nothing to do with emotional love. And interestingly, when you find your true love, and let's say you find a good quality wife and you get married, you'll sort of be soulmates, or you will be soulmates on a level, on a spiritual point of view. And you'll understand that there's not necessarily that there's one person made for me and all that stories and stuff that we fall into believing nonsense of the world. But from a spiritual point of view, you will find a soulmate. But it's because that soul is probably a similar level of maturity to you. And what happens is, when two souls who have the perfect balance of divine masculine, divine feminine within them, and they meet, and you have two full, complete beings coming together to share their love, rather than incomplete beings trying to extract love from one another. So rather than people trying to take love from one another and it being a battle for love and do this for me, no, you need to do this for me, it'll be two complete people sharing their love. and building a relationship based on mutual needs rather than extracting love. And I'd realize I'm not looking for a wife because I'm looking for on an ultimate spiritual path personally. But what I do see is when I look at beautiful women in the world now, it's not so much like when I was in a fallen state, it was basically extremely shallow. You just look at the looks generally. But the more you evolve, you look at the spirit and the spiritual beauty of the women. And now there's quite a few women I see who I would be willing to make my wife if I was looking for a wife. And I'm just looking for a soulmate, not from an egotistical point of view, but a soulmate in terms of a woman who has a beautiful soul and would match my soul and be a good wife and mother if I was looking for that. And there are a few women who I can just see that's the sort of woman I would like, or I would recommend men to marry. And unfortunately, they're very rare these days. But on the other side, those men are rare as well. And that's why I encourage all men to work on your spirit and become one of those men, because we need it in our world today. And just a few tips on how to awaken and also to gain your masculinity. You just need to have a temporary period of moving toward the spirit and away from the flesh. Okay, so start meditating every day. Do a very rare fast. So you could do, I don't know, a 3-day fast, build yourself up to it, and do a 3-day water fast, because that will release you from the fleshly bonds towards the spirit. And also, if you want to gain your masculinity as a man, stop seeking sex from women and stop watching porn. All that stuff will completely destroy your masculinity. And if you understand, essentially, men will know what I'm talking about, preserving your seed, because you have a lot of spiritual power in your seed. And when you're wasting it with sex or porn, you're losing your masculine power. And this is a well-known concept these days. If you just look into brahmacharya and preserving your seed, that's why all the boxers, before they fight, they preserve their seed, because it gives them physical power. But also, beyond physical power, it also gives you spiritual power. And I think it's one of the reasons women don't respect modern men, is because they can sense it without even knowing, maybe in an intuitive level, that men are just weak and they're not preserving their seed. Whereas when you preserve your seed, almost in a weird way, they can sense more of a power within you, and you'll even be able to sense it within yourself. So I highly recommend that if you're engaging in those activities, to preserve your seed, and you will gain your strength, a lot of strength from that. And look into the subject. You need to study it as well, because when you understand it better, you'll understand why you need to do it. And also, gaining your masculinity, stop, if you're smoking weed, getting into alcohol and drugs, too many computer games, too much TV, too much food. Any of those things are necessarily bad. So if you want to play computer games for half hour or watch some YouTube videos for half hour, a bit of fun and wind down time, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're just completely addicted and you have no purpose and a higher path that you're seeking and working towards earthly goals as well, good jobs, working on your money, physical fitness, all these things as well, as long as you're working towards that, that's a good thing. And once you have your spiritual and earthly purpose combined together, you'll be motivated. The problem in our modern world, they don't give us a spiritual and earthly motivation. So it's like, well, it's not much to do, so I'm just going to relax and, watch telly all day or play computer games or watch porn, whatever it is people will engage in these days. We need to move away from that to a purpose, to our masculinity, to our spiritual purpose, to building a world, looking for a good wife eventually, having kids, all this stuff in the future. That's what needs to be motivated to work towards. Okay, and the last point is just to say that real masculinity and the spirit and myself, I want you to become strong. I want men to become strong and find their true masculine power. And just be aware of the world, because the world doesn't want you to become strong and feel your masculine power. And just watch out for all these counselors and society. They're all emotional, and they want you to come along and, okay, I'm gonna give you 5 counselling sessions at £50 an hour, and we'll talk through your problems, but we won't resolve it, because I don't want to resolve your problems because I won't get your money. I just want you to keep coming back, and I'll give you little hugs and kisses and all that nonsense, but they're not setting you free. What I want to do is get men to become strong by seeking the Spirit. That's where the power, unlock it. It's within you. The Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of the self, the Spirit of God is within you, and you need to awaken it and understand that you're a child of the spiritual Father, and that's where your masculine power comes from. And it's very important that you actually do what all the spiritual masters say. That's what I did. I followed what they said. There's no point in watching all the videos and intellectually learning. You also have to do the spiritual work to unlock that spirit and your power within. And the problem with the fake spiritual masters, or some of them I've encountered, is what you'll realize is they're doing it almost from an egotistical, narcissistical point of view. They're not there to truly help you and make you strong. They're there for either they want you to worship them and say, oh, you're such a great cult leader, or they want your money, or some of these crazy spiritual leaders are after women for sex. So they're in it for their own self-motivation. Watch out. Anybody who's really looking after your money or looking for you to worship them, they're fake spiritual leaders. What you want is people who point you back to your own spiritual power. Anybody who's pointing you back to the power within you, they're the real deal. Anybody who's saying, come to me, buy my service and I'll give you your power, they're fakes and frauds. That's just a final warning. I want people to understand. The power is within you. Don't seek it anywhere else. And once you unlock that power, you're good to go. And then when you, as I go, get back into the dating scene, women will sense it and you'll be able to see a beautiful woman and she'll be attracted naturally towards you. And then you'll get a good wife, you have good children, and everything will work out beautifully going forward. And you'll look back at the times when you were young and naive and weak as good learning opportunity. And that's what happened to me, not so much in a relationship term, but just a lively terms. I look back at my difficult times as great learning experience, and it put me on a path to awakening. And now I've found my strength. Life is brilliant. I have purpose, meaning, and I'm at peace. And I don't get involved in all the emotional nonsense of the world because I have the real love of the Spirit of God, of Christ within me. Okay, so that's the point of my video today. And I'm just going to end it by saying I'm going to put in the description a link to a load of YouTube videos that I think will help you understanding masculinity and some of the stuff I touched on, some great spiritual masters teachings on masculinity. And the very first video, I'm going to put it in just because I like it. I wanted to include it in this video, but I think sometimes I get copyright strikes, so I don't want to mess around with it. But the very first video will be young Jesus teaching in the temple. And I think it's a brilliant, brilliant analogy of our modern world and how Jesus shows the way of what you need to be. And basically, it's Jesus disappears for a couple of days. He's young Jesus. Maybe he's like 13 years old. And he disappears. He was with his mother and father, but he disappears for a couple of days. And, you know, Mary and Joseph have been worrying, thinking, where is he? We've lost him, all this stuff. And Jesus is teaching in the temple. And then Mary and Joseph find him. And Jesus sees her while he's teaching, walks up to her and says, what are you doing here, mother? And Mary says, oh, we have been upset. We've been seeking you for days and days. She's all emotional and upset. And Jesus says to her, mother, do you not see that? Why have you been sorrowing? Do you not see I'm going about my Father's business? So Jesus is saying, like, you shouldn't be upset. I'm serving my Father. I'm spreading the wisdom. And you sense a power in young Jesus, strong power. Whereas what would happen in the modern world these times, it'd be the other way. Jesus would be crying, or not Jesus, the young man would be crying, going, oh, I've lost my mummy, and be weak and pathetic. And then when the mother finds him, he'd go to his mother for hugs and kisses, and the mother would love it because she's got that power over the young man. Whereas what should happen is how Jesus is. That's how young men should be. We should be raised with that spiritual power, because Jesus obviously had the power of the Spirit within him the whole time. And he wasn't weak and pathetic as we're raised to be. And he set Mary right. He said, mother, do not be emotional. Do not be trying to control me. I'm going about my Father's business. I'm masculine. I'm serving. But he wasn't abusive to his mother. He just said, he set her straight, but he also respected her, his mother, took her hand and he walked off with her. And it's a good lesson that women need to raise their young men as they would raise Jesus, respect his masculinity and that he is a son of God, and raise them with that power. And that's what the husband should naturally do, and the father should naturally do, raise their son with the spiritual powers. And that's his role as the father. But because, again, as I touched on before, because the world is so weak and pathetic and men don't know about their power, the women take control and they're all about hugging and kissing and giving that female emotional stuff rather than God's love. Okay, so that bit I want you to watch because I thought it was really profound. And as I say, there's going to be loads of videos I link in the description that I think you should go to if you want to learn more. And that's pretty much the point of my video today. If you like the video, like it, subscribe for more if you're new to the channel. If you have any comments or anything you would like me to expand on, place them below. And God bless everyone. Goodbye.